The fungi glowed. Not brightly, just enough to make the lower forest of Ardenvale look like the inside of a dream. Blue and pale green, soft and quiet, lighting the mossy ground in slow pulses. Ward had been sitting among them for 2 hours, pressing small glass slides against their caps and making notes in a leather journal that was already 3/4 full. Behind him, on a wide flat rock, the dragon was snoring. Soru was not a large dragon. That was the whole problem, in fact. At 60 years old, he was still the size of a large horse, golden scaled, with faint copper at the edges where the light caught him, and a tail that curled around itself when he slept. He looked young. He was young, in the way that a stopped clock is young, frozen at a moment that everyone expected to pass and never did. Ward did not mind the snoring. He had grown used to it over 2 years. "You are breathing on my sample slides again," he said, without looking up. The snoring stopped. One amber eye cracked open. "I was not snoring," Soru said. "I did not say snoring. I said breathing." "That is a very careful lie." Ward capped his pen. He turned around on his small folding stool and looked at the dragon, who was now pretending to be fully awake and dignified. Sora blinked both eyes, stretched one wing slightly, folded it back. "How long did I sleep?" Sora asked. "About 40 minutes. I was meditating." "You were meditating loudly." Sora made a sound that was not quite a growl and not quite a laugh. He stepped off the rock and padded over to look at Ward's journal, craning his long neck. Ward held it up for him without being asked. This was their rhythm, easy and unspoken, built over dozens of afternoons in this forest. "You drew the fungi again," Sora said. "I draw what I study." "You have drawn the same fungi 17 times. They grow differently each time." Soru stared at the page. Then he said, with genuine curiosity, "Do they?" "Yes. This cluster has shifted 12 degrees northeast since my first visit. This one here lost 2 stalks in the last rains, but grew 3 new ones. They look the same if you glance. They are not the same if you look." Sora was quiet for a moment. That was one of the things Ward liked best about him. He actually went quiet when he was thinking, instead of filling the space with noise. "You notice very small things," Sora said. "Humans die quickly," Ward said simply. "We do not have time to wait for things to announce themselves." Sora sat down beside him on the ground. His tail curled. He looked out at the glowing forest for a while. Ward knew what he was thinking about. He usually did by now. The flame core. The thing in a Dravari's chest that was supposed to ignite. That turned a hatchling into a true adult. That powered their long flights across stars. That made them what they were fully supposed to be. In Soru, it had never lit. In 200 other young dragons across Ardenvale, it had never lit. They were called Dusk Children. The elders spoke of them with love and with sadness, the way people speak about a long winter that everyone hopes is almost over. Ward had heard the elders ask Soru about it before. Gently, carefully, with great tenderness. "Has it stirred yet?" And Soru always gave the same answer. "Tomorrow." Not today, not soon, not never. Tomorrow, which meant something gentle and impossible and far away. Ward had heard this word many times. He had written it in his journal 3 separate times under different dates. He had not asked about it himself, because it had not felt like his question to ask. Until now. He closed his journal. "Soru," he said. You always say tomorrow." The dragon's ear tilted, not defensively, more like a small animal hearing an unfamiliar sound in a familiar place. "Yes," Soru said. "When someone asks about your core, you say tomorrow." "Yes." Ward looked at him. Steady, not unkind. "What do you think will happen tomorrow exactly?" The forest glowed. A light wind moved through the upper branches and made the bioluminescence ripple outward in slow rings, like something had been dropped into still water. Soru did not answer. Ward waited. He was good at waiting. Not in the Dravari way, which was a vast and ancient patience. More in the human way, which is a short and stubborn patience, the kind that stays quiet because it knows it will not stay quiet forever. Sora looked down at his own chest, at the place just below the base of his throat, where the glow should have been living all these years. He opened his mouth once, closed it. Then he said, very quietly, "No one has asked me that before." "I know," Ward said. "I do not know what I think will happen. I know that too." Another silence. Longer. The fungi pulsed. Soru kept looking at his chest. His expression was hard to read. Ward had gotten good at Dravari faces, but this one was new. It was not sadness exactly. It was the face of someone who had just noticed a door that had always been there, and realized they had never tried the handle. Ward picked up his journal, opened it to a fresh page, wrote the date at the top. He did not write anything else yet. He just left the page open, waiting, the way humans wait, with a pen already in hand. The question did not let Soru sleep. Ward found this out the next morning when Soru appeared at the door of the human enclave before Ward had even finished his first cup of tea. The dragon sat in the small courtyard outside, tail wrapped around his feet, staring at the stone path with the focused expression of someone doing arithmetic in their head. Ward brought his tea outside. He sat on the step. He did not say good morning. He waited. If the core needs something to start it, Soru said, what would that thing be? Ward sipped his tea. That is exactly what I have been wondering. You have been wondering? Since yesterday afternoon, yes. Soru looked at him sideways. You did not say that. You did not ask. The dragon made that not growl, not laugh sound again. But there was something restless in it now, something that had not been there before the question. Inside the Enclave's small research room, Ward's partner Yella was already at her desk when they came in. She was surrounded by printed skin sheets and half-eaten flatbread, which was normal. She was also talking to herself under her breath, which was also normal. She looked up at Soru without much surprise. Soru had been coming to the Enclave for 2 years. She had stopped finding him remarkable in the doorway, which was, Ward thought, exactly the right response. I want to know what the flame core actually does, Soru said. Physically, what it is made of, what starts it. Yella looked at Ward. Ward looked at Yella. He asked. Ward said simply. Yella pulled a scan sheet from the pile. On it was a detailed biological diagram of a Dravari chest cavity, not Soru's specifically, but a composite from old medical records the Dravari scholars had shared during the diplomatic exchange. She spread it on the table. Soru leaned down to look. Here, she said, tapping a spot below the throat. The core is a gland. Like an organ. It stores thermal energy and converts it. When it activates, it creates a stable internal reaction, constant, self-feeding. Like a small engine that starts itself and then runs forever. What starts it? Soru asked. In theory, a trigger. A big enough input of the right kind of energy to push the gland past a threshold. She paused. Your people believe that trigger is spiritual. Yes, Soru said. We are not sure it is. The dragon went very still. What do you think it is? Yella glanced at Ward again. Ward gave the smallest nod. We do not know yet, she said honestly. But we want to find out. That afternoon, while Soru went to the archive caves to read the old texts, Ward and Yella argued quietly over the data for 3 hours. Yella thought the trigger was environmental, specific minerals, maybe, or temperature cycles. Ward thought it might be physical, exertion, stress response, something the body did under pressure. They did not resolve it. They made a list of questions and agreed the list was good. The next day, Elder Ruin came to the Enclave. She was an old dragon, deep indigo scales that had gone silver at the edges, eyes that were the color of storm clouds before rain. She walked slowly but held herself like someone who had never once been in a hurry. She came alone. She sat across from Ward in the small meeting room and folded her great wings flat against her back. The boy is asking questions, she said. Yes, Ward agreed. You encouraged this. I asked him a question. He is doing the rest himself. Run was quiet for a long moment. Outside, through the narrow window, a group of dusk children were playing in the lower courtyard. 3 of them, young and golden and small in the way Soru was small. Permanently. Ward watched Run look at them. We do not push the dusk children, she said. They come to their flame in their own time. This is the way it has always been. I respect that, Ward said. And he meant it. I am only curious about what your archives say. Old texts. Old rituals. Things that may not be used anymore. Curiosity is not always kind, Rune said. If the boy tries and fails, it will break something in him. It will break something in this community. She looked back at Ward. Can you promise me that will not happen? Ward was quiet. He did not make promises he could not keep. No, he said. I cannot. Rune studied him for a long moment. Then she stood, slowly. I am asking you to stop, she said. Diplomatically. With full respect for your place here. Ward nodded. I understand. She left. Ward sat alone in the room for a while. He thought about the 3 children in the courtyard. He thought about 60 years of tomorrow. He thought about the archived text Soru was reading right now, alone, in a cave full of things the community had stopped teaching. He opened his journal. At the top of a new page, he wrote one line. What is the oldest ignition record in the archive? He did not stop wondering. He had promised to respect the request. He had not promised to stop thinking. That evening, Soru found him in the lower forest again. The dragon said nothing for a while. Then Ward. The old texts describe rituals. Physical ones. They stopped doing them 300 years ago. Why did they stop? Soru's voice was very flat. To protect the young ones. From the difficulty. Ward looked at him. Sora looked back. Neither of them said anything else. They did not need to. Yella did not sleep much. She worked instead. By the time Ward arrived at the research room 3 mornings after Sora's visit to the archives, she had covered the entire wall behind her desk in printed sheets. Biological diagrams. Archive translations. Temperature charts from geological surveys of the mountain caves. Mineral composition readings that she had pulled from the public Dravari database 6 months ago for a different study and never deleted. She had connected them all with red ink lines. Ward stood in the doorway and looked at the wall. Tell me, he said. She turned around. She had circles under her eyes and flat breadcrumbs on her collar, and the look she got when something had clicked into place. The ignition rituals in the old texts, she said. 3 parts. First, time spent deep inside the mineral caves, the sealed ones, up in the northern plateaus. Second, prolonged physical exertion. Running, climbing, sustained high-effort movement. Third, exposure to rapid temperature changes. Hot to cold, cold to hot, repeated cycles. Ward walked in and looked more closely at the sheets. And the flame core is a thermal gland, Yella said. It needs heat stress. It needs mineral particulates from those specific caves. I matched the mineral composition to what the core gland's outer tissue responds to in stimulation tests. It needs the body to produce a specific enzyme that only releases during sustained physical exertion. She stopped. She exhaled. The ritual was not spiritual. It was biological. Every element of it was doing something specific and real to the body. And it worked. Ward. Every hatchling who went through it in the old records ignited within 1 week. Ward stood very still. And 300 years ago, he said slowly, they stopped doing it. Because it was hard. Because it was uncomfortable and exhausting, and it frightened the young ones. Her voice was not angry. It was tired. They protected the hatchlings from the very process that would have saved them. And then the hatchlings stopped igniting, and they called it a mystery, and they waited for a prophecy. The room was very quiet. 300 years, Ward said. Yes. He sat down in his chair. He put both hands flat on the table. He thought about 60 years of Soru saying tomorrow. He thought about the other 200 dusk children on Ardenvale, frozen at the edge of what they were supposed to become. He thought about Run's face when she had looked at the young ones in the courtyard, that expression that was love and grief pressed together until they could not be separated. We cannot publish this without Dravari consent, he said. Yella had been waiting for that. Ward. No, we cannot. This is their biology and their culture and their history. We do not get to announce this to the galaxy without speaking to them first. Every day we wait. I know. His voice was quiet but firm. I know what every day costs. I still know what the right order of steps is. Yella stared at him. Then she sat down. She picked up a piece of flatbread. She did not eat it. Fine, she said. We tell Soru first. Ward nodded. Yes, we tell Soru first. They found him at the edge of the plateau that afternoon. He was sitting with his legs hanging over the side, watching the sky bridges in the distance catch the afternoon light. His tail flicked slowly, back and forth, the way it did when his thoughts were moving faster than his body. Ward sat beside him. Yella stood a few steps back. Ward told him, all of it, plainly and clearly, without softening any part. Soru did not interrupt. He listened the way he always listened, completely, without fuss. When Ward finished, the silence that followed was not like the usual silences between them. This one had weight in it. Then Soru said, in a voice so controlled it was frightening, 300 years. Yes. They knew it was getting harder. They stopped the rituals because they wanted to protect us. And every hatchling since then has been waiting for a prophecy, for the sky to remember. He stopped. His claws pressed slowly into the stone of the plateau. Not hard enough to break it, just hard enough. We have been waiting for something that was never going to come on its own. Ward did not say he was sorry. He did not say everything would be fine. He knew, from 2 years of sitting beside this dragon, that Soru did not want either of those things. He just stayed. After a very long time, Soru uncurled his claws from the stone. He straightened up. He looked out at the sky bridges. Tomorrow I will, he started. He stopped himself. The word hung there in the air between them for one moment. Then Sora made a short sound. Not a laugh, not quite, but something at the edge of one. Today, he said, I will go to the patriarch today. I will ask for access to the ignition cave. He looked at Ward. You will come with me. Yes, Ward said. Yella too. Yes. From behind them, Yella said, obviously. Sora stood. He rolled his shoulders. The copper at the edges of his gold scales caught the light and held it. Ward, he said. Yes. Do not let me say tomorrow again. Not about this. Ward looked at him. There was something in the dragon's eyes that had not been there 2 days ago. Not anger anymore. Something steadier than that. Something that had been sleeping for 60 years and had, just now, opened its eyes. You will not say it, Ward said. You already know what it means. Sora nodded once. Then he turned and walked toward the Patriarch's Hall, and Ward and Yella followed, and none of them looked back. The Patriarch's Hall was built into the mountain itself. Not carved into it, grown into it, the way old Dravari architecture worked, coaxed from the stone over generations until the walls breathed with the mountain's own warmth. The ceiling was high enough for a full-grown dragon to stand at complete height, and the floor was smooth pale stone worn soft by centuries of heavy footsteps. Every surface held the faint mineral glow of Ardenvale's deep rock. Soru had been inside once before, as a young hatchling, and had not spoken a word the entire time. He whispered directions to Ward as they walked in from the entrance arch. Keep your head slightly lowered when you address him. Not bowing, just lowered. It means you are speaking from honesty, not authority. Noted, Ward said quietly. Do not say in my opinion. It translates poorly. It sounds like you are already doubting yourself. Also noted. And do not look at Elder Ruin when she speaks. Look at Ovish. If you look at Ruin, it means you think she is the real power in the room. Ward glanced at him. Is she? Soru considered this. Sometimes. But today we need Ovish. Drin was already inside. He had come separately, unannounced, and was standing against the far wall with his pale teal scales and his arms crossed, and the look of someone who was ready to argue with anyone who needed arguing with. He gave Ward a single tight nod. Ward returned it. Patriarch Ovish was old. His bronze scales had gone dull at the edges, not from sickness, but from simple years, the way old metal goes quiet. He was seated on a broad stone platform at the far end of the hall, and he did not look alarmed by their arrival. He looked tired. The deep, considered tiredness of someone who has been carrying something heavy for a very long time. Elder Ruin stood to his left. She saw Ward. Her expression did not change. The formal request took time. Soru spoke first. He knew the forms and used them carefully, with more grace than Ward had expected. He laid out what he had found in the archives. He described Yella's research. He asked, in full formal language, for access to the sealed ignition cave in the northern plateau. Rune spoke before Ovish could respond. The cave has been sealed by patriarchal decree for 80 years, she said. Her voice was not hostile. It was simply a stone wall, solid and old. It was sealed because 3 young ones went through the old rituals without proper elder guidance and came out ill. 2 recovered. 1 did not. With respect, Yella said, stepping forward, I have read those records. The illness was mineral overexposure, too much time in the cave without rest cycles. The protocol I have drawn up addresses this directly. Duration limits, rest intervals, continuous monitoring. Rune looked at Yella the way mountains look at wind. Ovish held up one great hand. Both of them stopped. He looked at Ward. You, he said. His voice was deep and slow, like water moving through stone. You began this. Yes, Ward said. He kept his head slightly lowered. With a question. A question that has now led to my haul. Obish was not angry. He sounded almost curious. You understand what you are asking. If the protocol fails, if the boy is harmed, your people's presence on Ardenvale becomes very difficult to defend. Yes, Ward said. I understand that. And you still ask? Yes. Obish studied him. Why? Ward thought about the right answer for a moment. He found he did not need to look for it. Because Sorrow has been saying tomorrow for 60 years, he said. And until 4 days ago, no one, including him, had ever asked what he meant by it. When we finally asked, we found out he did not know either. He had been waiting for something with no name and no shape. He paused. I have been wrong before. I will be wrong again. But I will not choose to not try when trying is possible. The hall was quiet. Obish looked at Sorrow. When he spoke, the formal language was gone. His voice was simply old and direct. Is this your choice, young one? Truly yours. Sorrow met his eyes. I have been saying tomorrow for 60 years, he said quietly. Every time I said it, I meant never. I did not know that until a human asked me what I actually meant. He held the patriarch's gaze. I am not saying tomorrow anymore. The silence that followed was different from the ones before it. It had something fragile inside it. Not weakness, but the feeling of a very old thing shifting in its foundations. Obish looked at Ruin. Ruin said nothing. Her expression had changed in a way that was almost invisible. Only Ward caught it, because he had spent 2 years learning to read Dravari faces. She was not certain. She was not convinced. But she was not unmoved. I will do everything I can, Ward said. As they walked out, Ruin appeared beside Sorrow at the archway. She did not block his path. She stood beside him, briefly, and spoke so quietly Ward almost missed it. I hope, she said, that I have been wrong about everything. Sorrow stopped. He looked at her. This ancient dragon who had loved the Dusk children enough to protect them from the very thing they needed. So do I, he said, and walked into the light. Nobody told the other Dusk children, but they came anyway. By the time Ward and the others reached the northern plateau, there were 11 of them gathered near the cave's sealed entrance. Various scales, various ages, all of them stuck in the same unchanging smallness as Sorrow. They stood in a loose group at a respectful distance, not speaking much. One had brought a younger sibling, or maybe a friend. None of them looked away. Their families stood further back. Quietly. Ward had not expected this. He stood for a moment and just looked at them. Dren appeared at his shoulder. Word travels, he said simply. The cave entrance was a narrow arch in the mountainside, sealed with a fitted stone door that took 3 elders and a mechanical lever system to open. It ground inward slowly, releasing a breath of cool mineral air that hit Ward in the face like stepping into a cloud. Even at the entrance, the smell was remarkable, something deep and ancient and faintly electric. Yella reviewed the protocol one final time with Sorrow at the threshold. She was precise and quick about it. Duration in the cave, the movement sequences, the temperature cycle managed through the cave's natural hot and cold mineral vents. She had color-coded her notes. She handed him a small carved marker, borrowed from the Dravari medical kit, that he could throw toward the door if he needed them to come in. Do you have any questions? She asked. Many, Sorrow said, but not about this. She nodded once. Something crossed her face that she did not say out loud. He went in. The door stayed open, but only barely. Enough to hear, not enough to see. Ward sat down on the ground outside. He opened his journal. He had found, over years of fieldwork, that writing helped him wait. It gave his hands something to do while his mind was somewhere it could not follow. He wrote careful notes about the mineral composition of the cave entrance, the temperature of the plateau air, the species of lichen on the rocks to his left. He was aware that none of this mattered right now. He wrote it anyway. Dren paced. He had been pacing since the cave door opened, and he had not stopped. Back and forth, 6 steps each way, tail moving in short, sharp arcs. Ward watched him from the corner of his eye. He is strong, Ward said, not looking up from his journal. I know he is strong, Dren said tightly. That is not what I am pacing about. What are you pacing about? Dren stopped. He looked at the cave entrance. What if it works, he said, and it hurts him? Yella's protocol is conservative. That is not what I mean. He looked at Ward. What if it works, and it changes him, and he is not? What if he becomes someone different? Ward set his pen down. He thought about this seriously, because Dren deserved a serious answer. I think he will still be Soru, Ward said. Only more of it. Dren stood still for a moment. Then he started pacing again. But it was a slightly different kind of pacing, less trapped, more restless. 2 hours passed. The gathered families spoke quietly among themselves. Elder Rune arrived, alone, uninvited, without a word to anyone. She stood at the back of the group with her wings folded and her eyes closed. She might have been praying. She might have been simply present. 3 hours. The lichen to Ward's left was turning out to be more interesting than expected. He filled 2 pages. For hours, one of the younger dusk children fell asleep against an older one's side. The afternoon light shifted across the plateau, going from sharp gold to the softer copper of early evening. Ward ate a piece of dried fruit from his jacket pocket. Dren finally sat down. Yella checked her readings at the cave entrance. Said nothing. Returned to her spot. The 5th hour arrived quietly. Ward was mid-sentence in his notes about mineral crystallization when the cave entrance changed. It was not an explosion. It was not loud. It was simply light. A pale, brilliant gold, the color of Soru's scales in full sun, bleeding out from the crack in the cave door in a slow and steady pulse, like a heartbeat finding its rhythm after a very long silence. Ward closed his journal. Nobody spoke. Not one voice among the families, the dusk children, the elders, the 2 humans. The plateau was absolutely still. The cave door ground open. Soru walked out. He was shaking, visibly, in all 4 legs, the fine trembling of a body that had just done something enormous. His scales were damp. His eyes were bright in a way Ward had never seen before, as if something behind them had been switched on. And in his chest, just below the base of his throat, a glow pulsed, steady and warm and gold, like a small sun learning to breathe. He stood in the plateau light and looked at Ward. "You," he said, and his voice came out slightly rough. "We're going to be in so much trouble." Ward looked at him for a long moment. At the light in his chest, at the shaking legs and the bright eyes, and 60 years of tomorrow finally answered. "Worth it," Ward said quietly. Then the families moved, not rushing, rippling forward, the way a tide comes in, soft and unstoppable. The other dusk children pressed forward to see. One of them reached out a small paw and touched the glow on Soru's chest, very gently, and pulled their paw back and stared at it. Elder Ruin walked through the crowd slowly. Everyone stepped aside for her without being asked. She stopped in front of Soru. She looked at him, this ancient dragon who had spent decades watching the dusk children wait. Then she lowered her head in the full formal bow, the one reserved for those who had ignited. The deepest gesture of recognition in Dravari culture. Soru went very still. Then, slowly he bowed back. Between them, 60 years of waiting settled quietly into the ground of the mountain and was done. 3 months later, 7 dusk children had ignited. Not all of them had wanted to try. That was respected, without argument or pressure, each one given the information and the choice and the space to make it. Some said not yet. Some said they needed more time to think. Ward made sure Yella understood that this too was the right outcome, and Yella, for once, agreed without arguing. The 7 who had ignited were changing fast, growing in the way Dravari were supposed to grow, eating more, sleeping deeply, their cores pulsing steadily in their chests like small lighthouses. Patriarch Ovish had watched the first 3 ignitions in person. Ward had noticed, each time, that the old bronze dragon seemed to leave the cave slightly lighter than he had entered it, as if he was setting something down. Yella was leaving. She had a conference to attend and a paper to publish, and approximately 14 scientists across 4 species who had been emailing her for 6 weeks. She packed her research bags in the Enclave's small courtyard on a bright morning while Ward leaned against the doorframe and watched. "Your citation order is wrong," she said, without looking up. "You have not seen my citation order. I know your citation order is wrong because you will put me second to be polite, and I will not accept that." The discovery was a collaborative. "Ward." She stopped packing and looked at him. "I ran the biological models. You asked a dragon what he meant by the word tomorrow. We are not the same type of contributor." Both contributions were necessary. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she pulled her spare microscope out of her bag and held it out to him. "What is this for?" Ward asked. "You. I have another one. I have my own microscope. Now you have 2. She put it on the step beside him and went back to packing. Do not argue with me about the microscope. Ward looked at the microscope. He did not argue. He picked it up and took it inside. At the enclave gate, Yella paused. She turned back once. Ward was standing in the courtyard, holding a cup of tea, looking at the mountain line. You are not coming back with me, she said. It was not a question. I think I will stay a while longer, he said. She nodded slowly. The patriarch is giving you archive access. Yes. And Sora wants you to stay. He has a very long list of questions about human star maps. Yella looked at him for a moment. This quiet man with his leather journal and his careful questions who had come to catalog fungi and instead changed the future of an entire species. She seemed like she might say something large and important. Then she picked up her bags. Don't fill all the journals, she said, and walked out the gate. Ward smiled at the empty courtyard. Then he finished his tea. That evening, he found Soru in the lower forest. This had not changed. The forest, the bioluminescent fungi, the flat rock. What had changed was everything about Soru himself. He was larger now, visibly, even after only 3 months, a few inches in wingspan, a new definition in his jaw, the way he held himself slightly differently, like someone who had stopped bracing for something. The core pulsed gently in his chest, steady and warm, a constant companion to everything he did. He was not napping. He was awake and watching the fungi with an expression Ward recognized, the same focused look Ward must have had on his own face dozens of times, the look of someone trying to understand a thing properly. They are shifting again, Soru said, when Ward sat down. Northeast cluster? Southeast this time. 3 new growths. Ward opened his journal. Since when? Last week, I think. I have been watching. Ward looked at him sideways. Soru caught the look and made a face. Do not say it, Soru said. I was not going to say anything. You were going to say something about curiosity and observation and humans dying quickly. I was going to say that you are a natural scientist. Soru was quiet for a moment. Then, in a tone that was carefully neutral, I know. Ward laughed, a real one, the kind that surprised him. Soru looked pleased with himself. They sat together in the glow of the forest for a while, the way they had always sat, easy and unspoken. Except now the chest of the dragon beside him was lit from within, and the flat rock was slightly dented from 3 months of a growing dragon sitting on it. And the world was different in all the ways that count. Ward, Soru said. Yes. Why have humans not solved every mystery in the galaxy yet? You ask so many questions. Ward considered this. The fungi pulsed. The bioluminescence moved in its slow, breathing rings. Because we also have to live between the questions, he said. Soru turned this over for a long moment. I think, he said slowly, I understand that better now. The forest was quiet. Above the plateau, the first stars of Ardenvale's night were appearing. Not the stars of Ward's home, but his sky nonetheless, familiar now in the way that chosen things become familiar. Ward opened his journal to a fresh page. At the top, in his careful handwriting, he wrote a new question, one that had been forming for 3 months, about the mineral vents in the northern plateau and what else they might be good for. He did not know the answer. He did not know if there was one. He wrote it anyway. That was the whole point. Beside him, Soru watched the fungi shift and grow in the dark. Tomorrow, the dragon said suddenly, I want to ask about human star maps. Ward did not look up from his journal. Soru caught himself. A beat of silence. Then, with the faint sound of someone who would never say that word carelessly again. I mean, today, if you have time. Ward turned to his second fresh page. I have time, he said.